In this video, we'll look at the phenomenon of weakness of will, which means either doing something that you don't want to do or not doing something that you want to do. And you may have experience with this yourself. This is a challenge then for any theory of free will to explain. For instance, if you think that the will is one thing in the mind or the brain or the soul or something, what makes it sometimes weak and sometimes strong? Or if you don't think that the will is its own entity, but rather you think like I, that there are different desires competing and the strongest desire leads to action, then again, how is weakness of will possible? Because if what you want is the strongest desire, and the strongest desire is the desire that leads to action, it seems that you should always just be doing what you want, not that you sometimes do something else. So the way that I'll be attacking this problem is to say that we have these different conflicting desires. Some are innate, some are learned, but weakness of will, that's if what you choose to do is not caused by the autobiographical self, because I've said that you are free and more free when it's the autobiographical self that causes your actions, but that doesn't mean that the autobiographical self and what it wants is the strongest desire. You can have strong innate desires, for instance. So there will be different situations where it's correct to talk about weakness of will. We'll have a look at two different types of weakness of will. The first is when there's a conflict between an innate desire and a desire caused by the autobiographical self. For instance, we are born with this desire for sweets like chocolate, but maybe you have chosen later that you should go on a diet. That's not an innate desire, not something you're born with, but it could be a conflict then. And if the autobiographical self makes you diet, then you are freer, but maybe you decide to take a chocolate anyway, and then the autobiographical self lost, you could say, and it's a case of weakness of will. You can also have a conflict between an older and a newer desire, caused by the autobiographical self. So, for instance, maybe previously you decided that drinking alcohol is a good thing, wine, beer, etc. But then maybe you got children or something, and you said now there will be no more drinking. But still, you have these old desires, and since this newer autobiographical self is more self-formed, then it will be more free if you act on what that wants. But if you choose to go with the old, if the old desire are the strongest ones, then we'll say that it's an instance of weakness of will. Some also use weakness of will if you do something immoral, presupposing that you always want to do what is morally good, but of course not everyone does that, and I think there's no reason for having that as its own type. What I say about these two types will apply also to cases of moral weakness of will. So first then, type number one, that's when there's a conflict between an innate desire and a desire caused by the autobiographical self. Then we'll say that the action, if the action is caused by the autobiographical self, then it will be more free than an action caused by the innate desire. But again, the innate desire might nevertheless be stronger, even if the desire by the autobiographical self is freer. So it's a weakness of will if the innate desire wins, because it would have been a greater degree of free will, greater degree of independence, self-formation, self-control, etc., if the autobiographical self won. But it didn't, because the desire caused by the autobiographical self was weaker than the innate desire. Type number two, in this case, the autobiographical self is the cause of both desires, but one of the desires is older and the other is newer. Sometimes we are confused, we don't know what we want, but sometimes it's quite clear. This is what I used to want, but now I want this. And still, some of the old desires, maybe you left this sect that you don't want to be part of anymore, or you have this ex-boyfriend or ex-girlfriend or etc. So you decided to break away from this, not to have anything more with them to do, and still you can have some of these old desires that it's difficult to shake off. So since a newer autobiographical self has changed itself more times, it's more self-formed, more independent, more free, and so if the new desire wins, then you are freer. But the old desires can be strong, and so you might lose, and then it will be a case of weakness of will. We should say a bit about desire strength also, because I'm saying that the strongest desire leads to action, but that doesn't seem to fit with our experience. Sometimes I can feel that I desire pizza much more than I want than fish, for instance, and still I eat fish anyway. Or maybe there's a school meeting that I really don't want to go to, and still I go. So how can we explain that? First, we should say what we mean by, or what I should say, what I mean by desire strength. So it's both a matter of intensity and of amount, how much it occupies the mind, both at a time and over time, and whether we're talking about different good desires, good feelings, or bad feelings. So I can have desire for food or sex or friends, or these are different kind of good feelings, and they can come in different degrees of intensity and occupy my mind to different degree. And also then things that I really don't want. I think it's sickening or painful or boring, etc. So different bad feelings, different good feelings in different intensities. But the important thing is that this can be both conscious and non-conscious. So even if we have a conscious experience of our desire strength, there is in addition non-conscious desires at work. And that's what explains why we sometimes do something that we, even if we feel that we would rather do something else. So, for instance, we can imagine a doctor and a patient, and suddenly the doctor really feels this conscious desire, strong desire to have sex with the patient, and still the doctor does not act on this desire. Why not? Well, in this case, then we're imagining a lot of thoughts, lot of memories, etc. Was also activated in the mind of the doctor, thinking about scandal, maybe divorce, what if the patient gets pregnant, and all sorts of things, with its connected feelings and desires in addition. All of them influencing what actually the doctor chooses to do. So that's an explanation, but it's even more complicated because there are different other things also that influence what becomes our actual action. So synapse strength is an important thing, and that's the connection between the neurons in the brain. And every time we do something, this synapse or this connection gets stronger, so it's easier to do that action. It's easier to do an action that you've done many times. So we can again imagine two people lying on the couch Wednesday at 5 p.m. considering whether to go jogging, and both of them really feel that they don't want to go jogging. But in this case, if one of them always jogs Wednesdays at 5, it will be easier for this person to get up and go jogging than the other one, because it is a habit, or strong synapses. It's easier to execute that desire because of the synapse strength. And there's also other factors influencing different techniques, blood sugar, adrenaline, all sorts of things that comes in addition. This might then sound like an unfalsifiable theory, because any objection you raise, I can always say, well, there was this unconscious things going on, etc. So that seems like a problem, but I'll say that first of all, there is strong empirical evidence for it. You can put electricity on different parts of the brain, and people will feel really, really hungry, or very, very strong sexual desire, and will act on this. So start eating even if they're full, or start having sex even if it's very inappropriate in that situation. So we have empirical evidence that there is this desire, and it comes in different degrees of strength, and it has good explanatory power. The way I now could explain weakness of will and the other things that I've explained in these videos on free will. And it is also standard neuroscience, this idea that you can, that in the brain, the desire comes in different degrees, and when it reaches a certain threshold, it activates the motor neurons that makes the body move and makes you act. So of course everything is always discussed in every science, but here's one reference then showing that this is not just something I'm inventing, but quite standard also in the research on the brain. So that's what I wanted to say about weakness of will in this video.